Man, this rush hour traffic really gets under my skin. I sat there in a line of cars and buses, just itching to get home and crawl into bed. A few days back, I'd been sent off with my 2 guys to deal with a big equipment failure at one of our company's plants way up north. We'd worked nonstop, day and night, and finally, by Thursday afternoon, we managed to get everything up and running again. After all that, the 3 of us took a breather and crashed for a few hours in one of the offices, while the factory crew got back to earning their paycheck. Around 4 in the morning, we figured we'd finally fix the root of the problem, so we packed up and decided to drive home. I'd already dropped one of my assistants off at his place, and now I was pushing through the wall of morning traffic to get Ronnie home too. But something up ahead had the whole street at a crawl. As I inched forward, I realized some genius had parked right on the double yellow lines, which had the whole high street in gridlock. Our town's high street is old and really tight, so just one poorly parked car can throw a wrench in the works, especially first thing in the morning. As I got closer, I saw it was one of those huge Shogun SUVs. It reminded me, Mary, my wife Fiona's best friend, drives one just like that. I half wondered if it was her, since it'd be just like Mary to park wherever she pleased. Never really cared for her much, she's always acted like she's better than everyone. That's when I spotted Fiona. She was coming back to the Shogun from the pharmacy, holding one of those little paper medicine bags. She walked right up, and after giving a rather rude gesture to a driver who honked at her, she hopped into the passenger seat, and the Shogun pulled away. I was still a ways back and Fiona hadn't noticed me, but I'll admit, I was pretty curious what she and Mary were doing out and about so early. I didn't mention a word to Ronnie, no point, he'd just make some smart comment anyway. After I dropped him off, I headed home. Walking in the door, I got the shock of my life. Fiona came to meet me in her bathrobe, looking like she'd just rolled out of bed, her hair was a mess, and she had that sleepy look in her eyes. "Hey, honey," she greeted me, wrapping her arms around my neck and kissing me. "You probably want something to eat before you get some shut-eye, huh?" Now, I may not be a genius, but I'm not new to this world either. Something about her greeting didn't add up. Not even half an hour earlier, I'd seen Fiona on the high street, dressed to the nines in a short black skirt and that purple blouse I always thought made her look great. But now, she was in front of me looking like she'd just woken up, complete with a little bit of her nighttime skin cream still on her face. She was brushing her tangled hair as I came in, and when I kissed her, her breath was minty with toothpaste. That wouldn't be odd except for the fact that Fiona always brushes her teeth after her morning shower, but her hair was still dry, so she hadn't showered yet. So, what do you do in a situation like that? That's what I was trying to figure out. Do I confront her, or just sit back and see how things play out? I solve problems for a living, and my bosses always say I'm the go-to guy when something goes wrong. My usual method? Don't jump to conclusions, gather all the facts before making a move. Acting too fast can blow things up in your face. No, best to just lay low and watch what happens. "Nah, don't worry about me, Fiona," I told her. "I'll just grab a shower and hit the sack for a few hours. I can get something to eat later, on my way to work. There's a couple things I left unfinished on Tuesday that I've got to wrap up before the weekend." "All right, sweetie. If you use our bathroom, I'll just shower in the guest room," she replied. "Oh, you're not going to join me? I missed you while I was away. We could have a little fun," I joked, though I'm not sure why. Maybe I just wanted to see her reaction. "You wish," she teased back. "I overslept and I'm running late as it is. If we get started, we'll be in bed until lunchtime and I've got to get to the office. And don't forget, we've got Mary and Jim's engagement party tonight. I don't want us to show up late." "Don't worry, babe. I shouldn't be long at the office. I'll probably be home before you are," I told her. I have to admit, I was proud of myself for keeping it together. Inside, I was boiling, but Fiona didn't have a clue. I was pretty sure she'd been out all night with Mary, and that's what I'd seen on the street. They were probably on their way back home. The way Fiona changed into her robe so fast pretty much told me she hadn't been sitting at home all night like a devoted wife. At the very least, she'd been out all night, partying or whatever, not exactly the behavior you expect after 8 years of marriage. We each went to our own showers, and then I crawled into bed. Before she left for work, Fiona came in and kissed me goodbye. I tried to get some sleep, but my mind wouldn't shut off. You know how it is when you start doubting someone you've always trusted, it messes with your head. I had to give her the benefit of the doubt, but it was tough. Your mind goes in circles, imagining all kinds of things. After tossing and turning for an hour, I finally got up, made some coffee, and tried to eat some breakfast. But I couldn't eat a thing, My appetite was gone along with any hope of getting any rest. I kept picturing Fiona crossing the sidewalk that morning and then greeting me in her robe like nothing happened. Another thing that didn't make sense, the pharmacy doesn't usually open until 9. How did Fiona manage to buy something at 7:45 in the morning? Then it hit me, her friend Gemma's parents own that pharmacy, and Gemma's been running the place ever since she finished college. As I was cleaning up after my failed breakfast, my brain finally started connecting the dots. There was a glass on the dish rack. No big deal, right? But it was there, and I noticed it because I grabbed it to take a couple of aspirins for my headache. That's when I started wondering what was in that little pharmacy bag Fiona was carrying earlier. What was so important that she'd convinced Gemma to open up shop early? What on earth could be that urgent? It was time for a little detective work. I started searching the house and quickly found the pharmacy bag in the recycling bin down in the basement. Fiona's big on saving the environment, not that I minded, but in this case, it made my search easier. The rest of the house turned up nothing at first. Then I remembered the little bags women toss in the trash each month. Thankfully, I didn't have to dig through them all. The one I was after stood out because it was the only one there, and it looked almost empty. Fiona, you really should have wrapped it up a little better. Inside, I found a small cardboard box and some empty pill packaging, along with a standard information sheet. The box had contained 2 Levanel pills, the so-called morning after pill. That was it. There it was, clear as day. The end of my marriage, all wrapped up in a little paper bag from the pharmacy. I mean, there's really only one reason someone would need those pills. If you don't know what that is, you've got bigger problems than I do. Now, all that was left was to figure out who else was involved in Fiona's little secret. Maybe you're wondering, how do I know it wasn't Mary who took those pills? That's an easy one, hysterectomy. Mary's the kind of person who tells everyone about hers. She had some kind of issue after her second kid and never misses a chance to tell the full story, whether you want to hear it or not. Honestly, I've heard her tell that tale so many times, I've wondered if it's her way of getting attention from the guys. Maybe her marriage ended because she was the one stepping out, not her ex-husband, who knows? It might explain why he's the one who has the kids. Pretty convinced my marriage was heading for the rocks, I stopped by the bank on my way to work and made a couple of quiet changes to our accounts. Nothing drastic, but enough to make sure my assets were protected. Luckily, the house was in Fiona's name and our place in the New Forest was in mine. If things went south, I'd probably end up with the better end of the deal anyway. As soon as I got to my office, I called the big boss. He'd been after me for a while to take over management at our plant in Southampton, which, conveniently, is right by the New Forest. That day, I told him I was ready to make the move. "Good man, Nick. You're perfect for that job," he said. But I thought Fiona didn't want to move, since it would mean quitting her job. "Did you talk her into it?" "Not really, Roger. I think Fiona's looking for a change of husband. Either that, or she thinks I'm the kind of guy who'll turn a blind eye to whatever she's up to when I'm not around." Roger paused, he looked like he'd been hit with a bucket of cold water. He didn't quite know what to say. "Oh man, Nick, are you absolutely certain?" "I never would have thought Fiona would do something like that," Roger said, sounding genuinely surprised. "Neither did I, boss. That's exactly why I married her. But I have this gut feeling that while I was working up in Preston, someone else was keeping her company in a way I really don't appreciate." He shook his head. "Geez, I'm sorry, Nick." I just snorted, "What are you apologizing for? Unless you were the one with her, I don't see why you need to be sorry." Roger waved his hands. "Don't be ridiculous, Nick. Of course not. I'm just sorry I had to send you out of town. If I hadn't, maybe this wouldn't have happened." But I shook my head. "That's not how I look at it, Roger. If she cared that little about our marriage, it didn't matter if I was gone 2 nights or 20. She could do whatever she wanted any time I was away. Lord knows how many trips I've taken these last couple years. For all I know, she could have been out having a good time every time I wasn't home. Now, all I have to do is figure out who she was with last night." "You're taking this pretty well, Nick. If I found out my wife was stepping out on me, I think I'd lose my mind," he admitted. I shrugged, putting on my work face. "Well, Roger, that's kind of what you pay me for. When everything goes south, I keep a cool head. I figure out what needs doing and get it done. On the outside, I'm calm and collected, but inside, I'm furious." He looked at me with some concern. "Just keep it together, Nick. Don't go and do anything rash. Is there anything I can do to help?" "Yeah, actually. Approve a couple weeks of leave for me, and get my transfer to Southampton moving as fast as you can." "You got it, Nick. The guy running that plant now is only filling in from Salford, he's itching to get back home. Just give me the word and the job's yours. How about 2 weeks from Monday? I'll head down now and wrap up whatever's on my desk. The rest the team can handle. And, Roger, I don't know who you're considering to run my department, but I'd put my money on Ronnie. He hasn't been around as long as some, but the team trusts his judgment. Roger nodded. From what I've read in your reviews, he's definitely in the running. If you think he's the guy, I'll offer it to him. And Nick, just so you know, this move to Southampton comes with a seat on the board. I know, boss, I said, giving him a nod before heading out of his office. The rest of my day was a blur of tying up loose ends and making sure Ronnie knew what to expect after I left. I couldn't exactly tell him he was getting my job, but I made sure he wouldn't run into any nasty surprises. By the time I finished up, it was later than I planned and Fiona was already home. She met me at the door. I thought you'd be home early tonight. I got off work at 4 thinking maybe we could have a little fun before heading out to the party. Sorry, babe, I got caught up with some unexpected stuff at work. And honestly, there's no time for that now if you want to make it to the party on time. I should go shower and change. She gave me a mischievous look. Well, we could always shower together. I shook my head. Not tonight, babe. There'll be time after the party. The last thing I wanted was to get close to her, not knowing where she'd really been the night before. On our way to the party, I thought I'd test the waters, see if she'd tell me what really happened. Maybe she felt guilty and wanted to come clean. So, how did things go while I was away? I asked, as casual as I could manage. She just blinked. What do you mean? I mean, what did you do in the evenings while I was off crawling around that factory? If she'd rehearsed her story, she didn't let it show. She probably figured I could have called the house and caught her out if she lied. Oh, nothing special. When I told Mary you were stuck up north, she said we should go grab dinner after work. We had a meal, then went for a drink before she drove me home. I think I overdid it on the gin and tonic. I slept like a rock this morning. Pretty smooth, I had to admit. If I had called, she could have been out with Mary. And after a few drinks, nothing wakes Fiona up. The phone might as well not exist. If I hadn't seen her outside the pharmacy that morning, I might have bought the whole story. So, what pub did you go to? I pressed. The Plough. We ate at that little Indian place and then walked over to the Plough. Didn't mean to stay long, but they had karaoke going, so we stuck around. Poor Mary couldn't drink since she was driving, but I definitely had one too many. It all sounded reasonable, except I knew the Plough was where everyone from Fiona and Mary's office hung out. There's no way it was just the two of them. Jim, especially, would have been there. The guy practically lives at that pub. But Fiona hadn't mentioned Jim at all. My bet? She was out with Mary, Jim, and probably someone else. Just had to figure out who. Mary and Jim's engagement party was a big deal, held in a hotel ballroom just outside town. That's classic Jim, always over the top. He acts like he's running the company already. Personally, I think his bosses would be nuts to put him in charge. Jim likes to drink a little too much, which is why Mary's always the designated driver. He lost his license to a breathalyzer. The party was packed with Fiona's co-workers. Her company throws a lot of parties, so I knew most of them by now. I figured if I paid attention, I'd spot whoever Fiona had really spent her night with. It didn't take long for me to have a prime suspect. Bruce Campbell, Fiona's supervisor, had only been in charge a few months, but Fiona complained about him often. Still, that never stopped her from dancing with him in the past. But tonight, Bruce kept his distance. That was my first clue. The second came when I was at the bar, waiting to order a drink. Campbell stood behind me, and in the bar's mirror, I saw him nudge the guy next to him and smirk in my direction. Okay, it was thin, but it was enough to get my attention. Now, I just needed to confirm my hunch. I'd spent enough time with this crowd to know who the talkers were. Ralph was a bit of a loudmouth, but I knew he'd come in handy tonight. I waited until I saw him slip outside, probably for a smoke, then followed him out. But when I stepped onto the veranda, Ralph was nowhere to be seen. I looked around and finally heard some giggling below. I glanced over the railing and saw Ralph with one of the young secretaries. I thought, man, is everyone at this company up to something? Then a better idea popped into my head. I pulled out my phone, and acting like I didn't know Ralph and his friend were down there, I called my home voicemail and started talking to myself, loud enough for them to hear. Hey, Donnie, how's it going? Not so great. Got my results this afternoon. Sounds pretty serious, but the doctors think there's a chance to fix it. No, No, not that. It's gonorrhea. The real problem is it's a penicillin-resistant strain. Gonna take a while to clear up. Yeah, they've got me on some heavy-duty antibiotics. I really feel for anyone who's been getting close to her lately. Guess she picked it up from someone in the first place. No telling how many folks she's been with while I've been out of town. I sure wouldn't recommend going anywhere near her right now. Well, looks like divorce is my only option. Would you forgive your wife if you found out she'd been sneaking around with half the town behind your back? I don't really know. I guess everything will blow up tonight or maybe tomorrow morning. But right now, I can't do much. I'm at Fiona's friend's engagement party. Alright, buddy, I'll check in with you tomorrow. Let me know how it all turns out. I headed back into the party room, hoping Ralph had overheard every word I'd staged outside. If he already suspected Campbell and Fiona were up to something, I figured he'd take my little act and run wild with it. That's the thing with office gossips, they'll twist the details to fit any story they want. Fiona was still at her table, laughing and talking with her friends. I doubted she even realized I'd been gone. I made my way to the bar for another soda. Never touch alcohol when I'm driving. A few minutes later, Ralph and his date came back into the hall. The young woman peeled off to her friends, and Ralph instantly found his crew, huddling up for a whisper session. I watched Ralph look around until he spotted Campbell dancing with someone. Sure enough, Ralph circled over to Campbell and not so sneakily tried to get his attention, but Campbell just ignored him. While that was happening, I managed to spot old Mr. Gordon, the top boss at the company. I kept one eye on Ralph and walked over to introduce myself. Mr. Gordon. He looked up. Oh, hey, Nick. How's life at Vita Sound? You know, you should have taken that job I offered you with us. I'm retiring this year. You would have been a great pick for my role. I actually have a question for you, sir. Does the company still have that rule against coworkers dating each other? Mr. Gordon immediately got serious. Nick, is there something I should know? I'd like you to keep an eye on Ralph and Bruce Campbell for a minute, sir. I think Ralph is about to share some news with Bruce he won't be happy to hear. Nick, please, don't be cryptic. If there's something going on, I need to know. Honestly, sir, I don't have solid proof yet, but I think I'm about to get it. Would you care to join me? Ralph and Campbell were deep in conversation, and suddenly Campbell straightened up and glared over at Fiona. The guy's face went completely white for a second before turning bright red. Never a good combo with drinks involved. Then, looking furious, Campbell stormed toward Fiona, and Mr. Gordon and I followed. We stopped right behind him, totally unnoticed. You little cheat. Campbell suddenly shouted at Fiona, loud enough for the whole room. If you gave me something nasty, I swear, I'm going to fire you. Fiona turned scarlet and just sat there, completely stunned. Mr. Gordon stepped in. Mr. Campbell, am I hearing correctly that you and Mrs. Blackie have been involved with each other? Campbell spun around and finally realized we were there. No, sir, he was scrambling for an excuse. From what I overheard, it sure sounded like you were accusing Mrs. Blackie of passing something on to you. There's only one way that can happen, Bruce. Do you think I'm an idiot? That non-fraternization rule is clear. Both of you are married, so that applies here. You'll both be out of a job come Monday. You can't do that. Campbell protested. Oh, can't I? Watch me. There are plenty of witnesses. Try fighting this and you'll be laughed out of the tribunal. Mr. Gordon turned to me with a heavy sigh. I'm sorry, Nick. This must be really hard and embarrassing for you. If I'd known, I would have acted sooner. I appreciate that, sir, but I only found out today. If it's all right, I think I'll head home now. As I left, I glanced back and saw Fiona sitting at the table, head in her hands, crying hard. The music had stopped, and every eye in the place was on us. I grabbed my coat and made my way out through the hotel lobby. I reached my SUV but was too worked up to drive. Don't get me wrong, I'm not cold-hearted. It had been a long, emotional day, but I managed to keep my temper. I leaned against my car and lit a cigarette to calm down. A few minutes later, Campbell and his wife came out of the hotel. Well, I mostly heard them, since Mrs. Campbell was letting him have it with both barrels while he swore right back. When Campbell saw me, he ignored her and marched over, looking for a fight. You set me up, didn't you? I'll make you pay for this, he yelled, all puffed up. Honestly, Campbell's a bigger guy than me, and clearly he thought he could bully me. Trouble for him was, he'd had too much to drink, and alcohol messes with your reflexes. He swung at me, but but I sidestepped and his fist hit my car door. He didn't land a single punch after that. I got in a quick jab to his side and a hand to the throat, enough to put him on the ground, wheezing. Then, to top it off, his wife came over, gave him a couple of solid kicks, and walked away with a smile in my direction. I just shook my head, got in my car, and headed home. About half an hour later, I heard a taxi pull up. Sure enough, the doorbell rang. Fiona didn't have her keys. I thought about leaving her out there, but in the end, I let her in. She stormed in, voice raised. "What on earth made you go around telling everyone I had a disease?" She was using the classic best defense is a good offense move. "I didn't tell anyone that, Fiona. I can't help it if folks got the wrong idea after hearing Campbell's little outburst. Your boyfriend seemed pretty upset, though. What was that he said about you giving him something? For that to be true, you'd have to be involved with him. How long's that been going on, Fiona? And were you even being safe? Did you stop for a second to think about what you might catch from the guy?" Fiona just stared at the floor, quiet. "So, Fiona, isn't this the part where you tell me this is all my fault? That I didn't treat you right or wasn't good enough for you? Come on, explain to me how you let all this happen." She finally said, "I didn't mean to do it. It was a mistake." "A mistake? What, you accidentally wound up in bed together? Don't insult me. You went out to dinner with him last night, didn't you?" "Yes, but you weren't home." "There it is. My fault, right? You even called me to check I'd be away. Did you think I wouldn't figure it out?" "No, Nick, it's not like that. You weren't home, and Mary invited me to dinner with them." "So you took Campbell along as extra company? You know I hate feeling like a third wheel. And after dinner you went to the pub, had a little too much to drink, and the next thing you know, you woke up with him in bed?" She nodded. "That's exactly what happened. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was just drunk. It was a mistake, Nick, I swear." I shook my head. "Come on, Fiona. You've been complaining about Campbell ever since he took over the office. You only did that so I wouldn't suspect you actually liked him. Yesterday, he probably asked you out after finding out I'd be gone. That's why you called me. You didn't want me to show up. Sure, you all went to the pub, but I doubt you stayed very long or got nearly as drunk as you claim. You really think I don't know how you handle hangovers by now?" I said, looking at her. "If you'd really been that out of it, there's no way you'd have made it to work this morning. No, I think you meant to go back to Mary and Jim's place last night and... Well, let's just say I wonder how things went with Jim. Was he any different than Campbell?" Fiona's eyes went wide in shock. "What are you talking about? Come on, Fiona. Don't pretend you and Mary and Jim haven't swapped partners before." I saw Mary and Jim's faces when Campbell started yelling. They looked downright scared, like they were worried they'd caught something too. She suddenly looked exhausted, slumping down into a chair. "So you know it all, huh?" she said quietly. "I think I've pieced most of it together. What I don't know is how long it's been going on. I'm sorry, Nick. Honestly, it was just last night. I don't even know what I was thinking. Is there any way back from this?" "I already made my peace with it, Fiona," I said, my voice steady. "I accepted that job in Southampton today, and I'm moving into the cottage tomorrow. If we keep things simple, this divorce can be done in a couple months." "You're really going to end our marriage over one mistake?" she pleaded. "Where do you get the one mistake idea, Fiona? You lied to me for months about hating Campbell. If you'd been honest about being drawn to him and wanted to stay faithful, you could have supported my move to Southampton right from the start. That would have kept you away from him. But you said you didn't want to leave your job. Maybe what you really didn't want was to leave Campbell. Look, being with one guy might be a mistake. But trading partners with friends? That's not an accident, Fiona, that's a whole different thing. Let me ask, did Jim ever get you and Mary both together when I was out of town?" "Oh, no. No, Nick. Oh my God, what have I done to us?" she said, covering her face. "Not to us, Fiona. To yourself. You're on your own from here. I'll be back over the weekend to get my things. And if Jim sees me coming, tell him he'd better steer clear." "Nick, wait, can't we talk this out?" she pleaded as I walked out the door and closed it behind me. Plus, of course, the next part of it all didn't go quite as easily as I'd hoped. When I came back to gather my clothes and other things, Fiona managed to catch me, and we ended up in one of those long, drawn-out discussions at our lawyers' offices. She kept asking me to reconsider, to give her another shot. During those talks, she actually opened up more than I expected, laying out everything that had happened and what it had cost her. Turns out, Mr. Gordon called her into his office first thing Monday and asked for the full story. As a result, both Jim and Campbell were let go. Jim wasn't married, but Fiona was, and that was enough for Mr. Gordon to act. They did offer Fiona another job elsewhere in the organization, which I guess made sense given the circumstances. After all, with two managers involved, a good lawyer could spin that into a harassment claim. I don't think that even crossed Fiona's mind, though. Eventually, at our final meeting, we both signed the paperwork that would officially end our marriage. There wouldn't be any court hearings, the paperwork was all it took. As I was about to leave, what I figured would be the last time, Fiona looked at me and said, "It's not really goodbye, Nick, not if I have anything to say about it. I know I made a mistake. I know I hurt you. But I hope you'll forgive me someday. I'll be waiting for that day." The next 6 months were a blur of settling into my new life and throwing myself into work. I spent long hours getting to know everyone at the plant, from the security guards and cleaning crew to the folks on all 3 shifts. I couldn't remember everyone's names, but they all got used to seeing me around. I'm no chef, so I usually grabbed breakfast and lunch at the company cafeteria and then had dinner at the Foresters, the local pub, just a stone's throw from my cottage. I thought I'd finally found my footing when an old neighbor and his wife stopped by. They were vacationing down on the coast and wanted to check in on me. Before they left, they let me know Fiona had sold the old house, though they didn't know where she'd moved. Looking back, I probably should have paid more attention to what was happening in the village. The following Monday morning, when I pulled up after work, I spotted a moving van across from the Foresters, right outside the small cottage opposite mine. The next evening, as I came home, there she was, someone standing outside that cottage, wearing a black skirt and a purple blouse. Fiona knew those were my favorite on her. Every evening after that, she'd be out there, waving to me as I drove past. She never made a scene or followed me into the pub for dinner, but she made sure I noticed her. Folks in the village had known us as a couple for years, and soon enough, it felt like everyone was quietly taking Fiona's side. Whenever I showed up at the pub or anywhere else, the conversation would somehow turn to how sad and lonely Fiona was, never saying her name directly, but always making sure I overheard. For months, I convinced myself I wouldn't let them get to me. I wasn't about to stop eating at the Foresters just to avoid the talk. I'd prove to them, and myself, that I was sticking to my decision. But one night it hit me, I was the one who was really alone. So, tonight, I'm going to have dinner at the Foresters with Fiona. What's going to happen? I honestly don't know. I know I've always loved her, but whether I can move past what happened, that's the big question. Life keeps moving forward.